Hey crypto peeps, we are back. I'm with Matt once again. We are here 1 week later and we haven't moved a whole bunch in the crypto space, but we're going to do a little update and just figure out where we can possibly go from here. So, on Bitcoin, last time we checked in was March 23rd and we were around 6,600. We had a bit of a bullish move up and we broke that little resistance here, but again, as mentioned last time, I think the 6,900 to 7,000 psychological resistance zone is a bit of a tough egg to crack, and we didn't manage to really break it. Not enough volume on this new push up to really get past 7K. And because of that, we pulled back. But again, same as the last video, we were just looking for this support at 56.88 to hold, and it did. And that brings us back to a little bounce here for a daily higher low and right back to where we started. So Bitcoin this week, not super interesting. Now, to zoom out onto the weekly, we can see that last week, because of the way that we closed, we have kind of this big upper wick. And it looks currently like we're probably going to stay in the weekly inside bar. We're filming this video on March 30th, so there is a chance that maybe we will not break this range by the time, let's say, April 6th rolls around, or 5th. But if it does, again, we are looking again up at 7,000 basically, and then not too much further away, we have the weekly EMA 12 at 73.95 and slowly coming down. And of course, support of 56.88 if we break bearish. So Matt, not super interesting, but do you have any other thoughts?
No, since the last time we did our last video, the price is the same. I see a bunch of new candles, but we're still at about 6,400. So not much is going on. If you look at the weekly time frame, volume is dropping off the past 2 weeks from our little volume climax on the dump and the bounce.
Yeah.
I would anticipate this week will again be lower volume as the market just continues to find an equilibrium and fair value for the price of a Bitcoin. Looking at the same EMAs here on the daily time frame, on the weekly time frame, and on this push up, I would be looking for a lower high below our double top right around 6,900, 6,958.
And to zoom out onto the monthly chart, because that one's a little bit interesting as well. We have one more day in the month, but if I was to place a little bet, I would say that we'll probably close over 64.35. We're within $20 of it. But that's going to make this chart look really interesting because it'll look like we broke this monthly high or low, but we didn't actually close under it. Or if we do, I think it's going to be, within the range of like 1 or 2% tops, unless something crazy happens tomorrow. So I think that's a bit interesting chart-wise. It really looks like there was a big shift and capitulation here, but we're kind of right back into the range of kind of support and, obviously people selling as well.
Actually, this monthly candle is kind of funny because right now we're pretty much at the midpoint between the top of the upper wick and the bottom of the lower wick.
Yeah.
If we close right around this area, we can really trade within the range of the March candle for the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and that would be extremely boring. And it's a good thing that I'm probably going to do more than just crypto stuff on this channel, because if that is going to play out this way, or maybe even on the weekly we get a bit of a bull break here, we're still going to be stuck. I believe the high of this monthly candle was 99,000. There's just very little chance that within the next month, in my opinion, that we're going to break 9,188 or lose this support of 3,700. It's just a gigantic range there that we've kind of established.
Yeah, I'd share that opinion too.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be a very dry time. Just to keep in mind though that the halvening, I don't know what day it is in May, but I believe it's early May. There is probably going to be some sort of price movement in there as a lot of people get excited, as a lot of miners. And that's something maybe we can talk about, because just imagine you're kind of in the place of a Bitcoin miner and suddenly one day, 2 months from now, your revenue immediately gets cut in half on a daily basis. If you have a bunch of Bitcoin that you're storing, what would you do with it? Would you sell it right away, or would you kind of hold on to it? What do you think?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I've heard two situations, and one of them is that,
Mhm.
well, miners are going to hold on to the Bitcoin. They're going to mine as much as possible before the halvening, and then just hold on to it, hoping that the price goes up. And then the other side is, well, they're going to sell all of their inventory because they have to be able to cover the cost of electricity and everything while they're mining at perhaps a loss because their output is getting cut in half. So there's two stories to it. I really don't know, but I would say May will probably have a bit more volatility than what we're seeing lately on the daily. The one thing I'll also just say on the weekly, which is kind of interesting, is that despite not moving too much last week and despite having this upper wick, we are seeing a lot of volume go through. Even after this climax candle, we're still seeing quite a bit of volume. We haven't quite returned to kind of median weekly volume. And I chart a lot of the stuff that I do on the Binance exchange, and this is just showing that, again, the move from exchange to exchange is still rapidly changing, and Binance is still gaining ground as it kind of hits record volumes. When you look at something like Bitfinex, let's just pull that one up real quick. When you look at Bitfinex, not even close. Since 2017, it's only been going down. You got a nice little spike here, but again, nothing compared to 3 years ago. Can pull up Coinbase, maybe see how that one's doing. Coinbase, big volume, but again, not that much more than when they're at the all-time highs. But if you look at Binance, obviously it's come a long ways, and it's a much bigger portion of the market, I think, trades with them. So something to keep an eye on. I haven't included BNB in the analysis today, but I think that's one to keep an eye on because obviously a lot of people use that exchange so that they can get discounts on fees and all those other features they have, like staking and futures, and now they have leverage and shorting and all that stuff. So yeah. Checking in on Ethereum, it's kind of the same situation, but what I love about Ethereum actually is that it's a very clean inside bar setup on the weekly. Now, the problem with a beautiful setup like this, unfortunately, is that Bitcoin and Ethereum are rather tied to the hip. So when we see these candles setting up, and they're kind of inside each other, kind of like enveloping each other like a set of Russian dolls, that is kind of on a shorter time frame, generally in equilibrium. So what we can see here on Ethereum is we have these daily higher lows, and daily lower highs. And basically what that means is that eventually Ethereum is just going to get so tight, like that rubber band thing that we talked about in the first video, that it's going to have to explode and go somewhere. But, I would say the only problem with that, and we had a great trade where that was kind of the situation up here, and if you shorted that, you would have made a mint. Could have shorted all the way from 237 down to $86 if you were perfect at timing things. What I was going to say, though, is basically we are in such a tight pattern here that the Ethereum price is not really going anywhere, and I think there will be a break of that shortly. I don't think that we can stay in this range for more than another week or two, but the break might not necessarily have follow-through, just depending on what Bitcoin does, as it is kind of the de facto leader. Matt, do you have any other kind of notes on Ethereum?
I think we're going to see volatility on Ethereum before we see volatility on Bitcoin.
Right.
You're right. It looks just a little tighter. It looks a little bit neater and more contained here. This will be one to watch, and I don't know how often Ethereum has led the crypto space.
Mm-hmm.
But I would certainly, if there is a history and if there is a pattern there, I would certainly be watching Ethereum for early clues. Your next chart is ETHBTC. That's what after seeing Ethereum here, that's what I'm really...
Yeah, we can pull that one up real quick. One thing I would say too is in terms of what leads what, there was a bit of a difference earlier this year with Ethereum having a much bigger run up from the lows of December up into kind of like mid-February here, where the market also topped out, the S&P 500. But Bitcoin's move was like 50% and Ethereum's was at like way over 100%. But the thing that's just amazing about this move is that as quickly as it ran up, it was easy to give the entire thing back and then some. So it's interesting that Ethereum can decouple, but again, if Bitcoin's going to do its thing, it can quickly make up all that ground. It can be stronger than Bitcoin for a while and then quickly make up its ground and very fast become weaker than Bitcoin if the market's going in one direction or another. So Ethereum Bitcoin chart, let's zoom out to the weekly, but as you can see, the problem I have with charting the pairs and the ratios sometimes is you can just get a multitude of like one candle in a certain direction. Because you're not really charting against the US dollar. You get kind of these like giant waterfalls in one direction. And you know, technical analysis still applies to these things, but the orderliness of some of the candles on, let's say, like the weekly time frame is just something you wouldn't normally see on, you know, certain other stocks necessarily or tickers. So with Ethereum Bitcoin, I think we mentioned this last week, we are still looking for actually a weekly higher low on this and a monthly higher low. We had a monthly trend change, I believe, without necessarily a weekly trend change. So we set a lower low on the weekly here and kind of just broke out. Didn't quite actually get a weekly higher low and higher high, but we did get a monthly higher low and higher high. And so we are looking eventually for this kind of bleeding against the Bitcoin price to stop. But again, you can get things like this where you break out, have a huge surge, and then just bleed all the way out to lower lows. What do you think?
This is getting close to the point, if this were a ticker and you were trading it, this is close to the point where I would be looking for a higher low compared to the low of, right there, you got it. Yeah, you know what? Just knowing that we're looking for a higher low compared to that, looking at how tight and how contained Ethereum is in the daily time frame for the past 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really liking Ethereum right now. And I'm not saying that we will get a higher low. I'm not going to say that we're going to break bullish or bearish. I'm just going to look at the levels and take new information day by day. But this is certainly something that has my interest.
We are definitely looking at some point, and it's happened where you just bleed this whole thing out to lower lows, but we are going to look at some point if Bitcoin stays stagnant. They call it alt season sometimes, where certain tickers against Bitcoin break out just because there's so much money in the markets, and if they can't move Bitcoin, they start moving to lower float coins to try and get moves. I'm talking about kind of the whales. What I would look for on the Ethereum Bitcoin chart is you want to see some sort of daily trend change. That would be nice, but you would also want to see some spike in volume to show that people are moving their Bitcoin into Ethereum as well as just the Ethereum USD ratio. But yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. Not a whole ton going on this week. We don't really have a ticker for this week because all of the altcoins are generally doing the same. I think XRP had a little bit of a move, but there wasn't much. And just to follow up, we mentioned a couple sessions ago the dangers of leverage and how some of these big leverage tickers in the stock market have gotten just crushed, right? Because 30% up is not the same as 30% down, and some of these tickers that are tracking 3 times the underlying are doing these giant moves. So Bitcoin and Ethereum had their own ones on Binance, and they're actually delisting them now because the CEO of Binance said that people didn't understand how they worked. And to which I say, I think it's very clear how they work and that they don't work. And so you have a chart like this where Ethereum, was like $200 here, and it's, it's 100 and something here, but this is much more than a 50% drop. This is basically the death of a leverage ticker. This was only 3 times Ether, and it didn't track it at all.
Wow.
It looks like basically, man with the heartbeat going to 0 here. On the log chart too, it just looks ridiculous. Like this whole thing just broke 90% drop in one day because you can't even multiply 50% drop 3 times to the downside. You can't have like negative 150%. So this whole thing just broke on one day. And pretty much useless to trade for more than like a couple minutes. But I would even say, like, I remember I was trying to trade this ticker for like a little 5-minute bounce, and it wasn't moving at all properly with the Ethereum price. It wasn't making higher highs on the 5-minute when Ethereum was. So leverage tickers, stay away. and
Yeah,
now you're going to
we're
be
seeing
forced
the
to stay away.
same thing in the market with oil.
Yeah.
UWT is the 3 times leveraged oil bull ticker, and it went down something like 73%
It's
overnight
still
in one day.
it's still trading. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
It's still trading. It's a penny stock. It's likely, in my opinion, to be delisted, but this actually came within 1% of a triggering event in the prospectus for the ETF that would have actually just everybody would have been paid out at pretty much zero. It would have been delisted.
Oh, like a margin call?
Yeah, it came
Oh,
very
wow.
close to basically the triggering event that kills it. If you look into the prospectus, I think
Hmm.
it's got to drop 75% in one day,
Oh,
and
wow.
it
Yeah, it
dropped
got close.
73 and a half or
Yeah.
73. Yeah, it came very close. Another one are the 3 times leveraged miners. I think there was one day
Yeah, the
where
miners got wrecked too.
yeah, both the bull miners and the bear miners were down 10%
Oh, on the same day.
on the same day. They completely disconnected from what they actually track.
So 17th of March, it looks like. But I mean, it's the same deal where
Yeah, they just completely disconnected from reality in terms of what
yeah,
they're actually supposed to track to the point where the tools are broken.
yeah, completely
You
broken.
really want to be careful with that.
Well, we saw this on a scale with it's interesting because there's always precursors to these things. Like whenever you have like a big collapse, there's some sort of like foretelling sign. But that was last year with SVXY. That was the short volatility ticker. It got destroyed on a volatility spike, basically. They shut it down for a little bit. I think that had a triggering event. But yeah, you can see all these leverage ETFs. Just basically, you have to stay away. And you know, it's pretty sad because I got my girlfriend and a couple other people into SPXL on the way down looking for a bounce, and I realized that not even these ones that track underlying tickers that don't move that much are safe from this. As soon as your underlying ticker starts moving more than like, let's say like 7 to 10%, these things just get crushed, and they will not track one for one at all with the ticker that you're going for. Where S&P 500 is like, you know, it needs like a 30% move, I think, to get back up to the all-time highs from here, maybe more, I'm not sure. This ticker needs like so much more. It needs like 300+% when it really should only need like 100%. So yeah, lesson of the day, no more leverage. But I think we went over that last video. So just a reminder, when you have volatile markets, it's best to always have dry powder so that you can scale into things rather than kind of going all in at once or trying to push more out of a certain move when you're kind of fighting the trend. But yeah,
Completely agree with that.
yeah. So that's about it. I'm going to probably put out another video this week. I have a fun one coming that's not technical analysis related, but we're going to start doing some different stuff on this channel. And I've been saying it last couple of videos, but I actually have some stuff in the pipeline editing right now, and you'll see it very soon. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take it easy.